All right. Hello. This is Mr. Ippolito. Let's see. Is this thing on? I think I am now on. There's a little bit of a delay between the time that I'm talking and the time when I actually see myself on YouTube. So I think we're live. I think we're good to go. And hello and good evening. Hello to Mr. Ippolito students. Great to have you here. This is our first YouTube live review session of the school year. I want to start out by first just saying, hey, if you can throw your name in the chat, I would love to see that you're here. Use your first name. Let me know what class period you're in, and representing my daughter Libby. I also want to give her a shout out. She's in the chat as well, and she just texted me saying yes, you're on. So I always, it's been a few months because I haven't done this YouTube live since the spring when we did our Manifest Destiny unit exam. So I always want to make sure that I'm doing it right, and that we're still coming through loud and clear. So. Thank you to everybody who's here. I do see Steve Solomon in the chat. So Steve, hello. I see Camila, welcome. Gio, I see you. Abram as well. Kai, Steve, I do see you. Hello, hello, hello. Yes, so definitely go ahead, and I see Cassandra coming through right now. Mahi, Finn, thank you. Lots of different class periods. Wyatt Taylor, what's up? Giving you a shout out. Hello. So thank you, Brendan. And so just good to see everybody here. I see I see some other comments coming through in the chat right now. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of go over just some expectations, what you can expect from me this evening, and then we'll go from there. First, want to start off by just saying, first of all, please keep the chat appropriate. Like I said, my daughter Libby, who is coming to us all the way from Willamette University in Salem, Oregon, if she is like, hey, I don't know what's going on, or anything's confusing, or seems like it could be inappropriate, again, we want to keep that chat appropriate and helpful for everybody who is here. Now, I already have a message from Spondita. Hello, Spondita, giving you a shout out. For some reason, and this happens every year, and I'm not sure why. For some students, it says the chat is unavailable. I'm not sure if that means that it is like you're on, maybe if you're on your school account, it won't allow you to chat. I'm not sure. Paige and Bryn Burns, the Burns twins, I see you. Thank you. So this is why if you want to get a hold of me, then I also have my email that's open as well, in case you're having any trouble. So like I said, I think sometimes Heart District accounts can't chat. And then hello to Alex Watkins as well. I see you. So I give you a shout out. Yeah, again, so if you're unable to chat, again, that happens sometimes. And so just want to let you know, Alex and the Burns twins, I see you also. Feel free to email your questions if you're having any trouble with the live stream or with the chat. Okay, having said that, yeah, so, and then Spondita and Srajita, if you're not able to, Steve is saying that the school chat is not working. So again, if you're on a personal YouTube channel or personal YouTube account, personal Google account, I should say, you can chat that way. Or just like I said, go ahead and just send me an email, and I'm checking my email throughout as well because I want to make sure that you can get through with your questions. So here we go. All right. And then Abram is confirming, yes, school does not work. So they must have some security protocols in place so that even though you can watch YouTube on your school account, maybe you can't engage in chat with your school account. But not a problem. Just go ahead and email me those questions if you are unable to. Yeah, you're saying because it's managed from the Heart District, probably so. Sometimes there are those controls. Okay, so like I said, throw your name in the chat and or email me if you have those questions so I can shout you out by name. I want to help you understand big ideas this evening. We're going till about 8 o'clock this evening, so I want to be respectful of your time, my time, my daughter Libby, who's up there in Oregon, her time as well. So really some big ideas. I'm going to have some things that I want to share with you, but I also want you to give me your questions as well. So that's so yeah. So please send me those questions. One of the questions I got is, will we finish the whole study guide? That is entirely up to you. If you're talking about will we finish it tonight, the answer is probably no. I'm going to go through what I think, and this is even better. I'm going to go through what I think are the most important points because I'm the one who wrote the test. I'm the teacher who, like, I know the most important things that I want for you to understand about the Constitution, about this unit from chaos to Constitution, really, right? Because I want you to understand that this is a progression. I also want to relieve some mystery and stress for you about the exam. So one of the things, and so Alex, I hope I answered your question. If not, you can email back. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, because students ask this all the time, Mr. Ippolito, what's on the test? Currently, I have 24 multiple choice questions, of course, subject to change, but currently 24 multiple choice questions, currently three short answer questions. And so, uh, again, that's subject to change, but the 24 multiple choice is going to be formatted very similarly to the way you saw it in the practice exam. Another reason why I give you the practice exam is so that you can be familiar with the way that I give exams, the way the question format's going to work. And I believe if you jump into Class Companion, I think that even those students who are absent should be able to see and access the exam and get that in real time as well. Um, so even if you were absent last week when we took the practice, you should still be able to access it as well. Those students who already did take it, you should also have access to it. Let me know if you're not able to access that in Class Companion, because looking over that in advance is going to be helpful. I will let you know that because the practice exam questions are close in some cases to the real exam, I want to let you know that by tomorrow or Friday, whenever you take the exam, I will be closing the practice exam in Class Companion. So if you want to take a look at that, just make sure you take a look at it ahead of time. It is going to be closed by the time we get to your class. Okay. Asha, I see you in via email, so thank you for giving a shout out. Chat is not working for you. So again, it must be Heart District. So if you access from a personal Google or just email me your questions, that'll work. And Alex got you. Thank you. Okay. What are we doing tonight? Let's get back onto it. I want to remind you of our theme from chaos to constitution. That's going to be kind of the progression of our exam, and that's going to be the progression of our review time this evening. So let's just go ahead and jump in and get started. Some of this, if you've watched either one of my vocab videos, you're going to see some repetition, some similarity, but it's worth kind of going through again over and over again, just so that it sinks in. Review is not a bad thing. First thing is the Articles of Confederation. You should know that there was chaos under the Articles of Confederation, right? Chaos when it came to the fact that there was not a strong enough national government in order for our country to survive. You can see in the political cartoon here, no national court system, no power to enforce treaties, no power to raise a standing army in peacetime. In other words, that's kind of interesting because under the Articles of Confederation, if you wanted to raise an army, you had to be at war first. Well, we know of our modern military today that our modern military is constantly training, is constantly ready for any threat that may come at any time. So the fact that we have our modern military ready to go so that we can feel safer, that's something that's important to us today. Back then, there was no way to raise an army or a navy unless you were in a time of war. So again, that's another limitation of the Articles of Confederation. Probably two of the biggest limitations of the Articles, of course: no power to collect taxes, no power to enforce laws. There's only one branch of government under the Articles of Confederation. That's the legislative branch. Remember, under the Articles, there's no executive branch, there's no judicial branch, there's no court system, no executive branch, there's no president. So really, the Articles of Confederation had a way of making laws, but no way to enforce those laws. No president, no executive branch to enforce those laws, no federal court system to interpret those laws. So the Articles of Confederation was really limited, and it really gave a lot of power under the Articles to the states. So then we get in the progression, we get to Shays' Rebellion, right? And Shays' Rebellion was that time period where, again, but this is now the winter of 1786, November, December of 1786. And if you remember, we had this conversation a few weeks ago. These soldiers now turned farmers. Farmer is pretty much the number one job right now in the United States in the 1780s. These soldiers turned farmers. They're not getting their war payments from the time that they were serving in the Revolutionary War, and so they don't have that money to pay their mortgage on their farms. So those farms are being foreclosed upon. Now, it's still today, just like it was back then. If you're gonna Before you go through foreclosure, you have to go before a judge. You go into a court, and there's a foreclosure court. There's a foreclosure court process. Well, the rebels under Daniel Shays, they decided, you know what? If we shut down the courts, if we have and let me just interrupt for a moment. First of all, Ian Chen, I'm going to give you a shout out. Hello, Ian. I see you in the email. And another question: can I take notes if I want to? Absolutely, yes. You totally can. I encourage that. Shays' Rebellion, they figured, you know what? If we shut down the courts, if we bring our muskets and we're an angry armed mob standing in front of the courthouse, then they can't foreclose on any of our neighbors. They can't seize any of our neighbors' property. And so, hey, that's a good idea, right? But the problem is, if the courts are shut down, then what did the banks do? The banks lent that money to these farmers. So if the farmers aren't getting their payments from the government, then they can't pay the bank. If the bank's not getting their payments, then the bank is going to get shut down eventually because they're not going to have their money. So you can see the problem that they have. You can see the problem that the national government has. The national government is powerless to intervene in Shays rebellion. They don't have the power to do anything. I'm going to pause for a moment because my daughter Libby is saying there are some questions in the chat. So I think, and Libby, you can tell me if I get all these questions. What are the topics for the short answer questions on the test? Cassandra, I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to answer that. But I want to, it's going to be towards the end. So stick around and be patient. I promise you, I will let you know there are 3 short answer questions. I'm going to reveal the 3 topics. You should already know one because I put it in the study guide, but there are 3 topics total that I'm going to get to. The short answer questions, just like a paragraph or a word or two, just like a sentence. So, the short answer questions are going to be, I'm going to recommend anywhere from 3 to 5 sentences, but I am going to, so it's going to be about a paragraph for each short answer response. I am going to put in the directions. This is my recommended number of sentences that I think that you can successfully complete and have a full and complete answer. I always have those students saying, Mr. Ippolito, can I write more than 3 or 4 or 5 sentences? Absolutely, you can write more, but the recommended minimum, if you want to try to get either a proficient or a mastery score on these questions, is going to be either 3 or 4 or 5 sentences. And again, you'll see that because I'll put that in the directions for each one of the questions. So hopefully that helps you out on that. Real quick, Gabe, I'm going to give you a shout out. Hello, Gabe. Hello, Augie. Alex says, can you tell Libby I said hi? I sure will, and I just did. Okay, going back to the chat. Let's see. Okay, I'm seeing something about spikes. Oh, I think now, so this is a new thing. If you're seeing that like crown, I think that's a measure of engagement. There's some sort of like leaderboard. And I think the leaderboard in the chat is like how engaged you are. So I think, for example, I think Abram, you are currently number 2 on the leaderboard for chat engagement. And Royette, I'm not sure who Royette is, but I think you are number 3 in chat engagement. So I think if you're asking for the spiky thing, I think that's a little crown that's giving a shout out to the people that are on our leaderboard. And Steve Solomon, I think you're number 1 in engagement. So I think that's what that means. I think. I don't know. It's a relatively new feature for YouTube Live. Okay. Gabe asks, what's the difference between the Great Compromise and the 3/5 Compromise? Gabe? Oh, they're talking about the Shays Rebellion photo. Oh yeah. So these here, there's so much going on right now. I'm a little distracted. Gabe, 3/5 Compromise and Great Compromise is part of my slide presentation, so I'm going to get to it. These spikes, these are bayonets. So the muskets of the 1700s, and frankly the guns the guns of the 1800s as well are going to be tipped with bayonets. There will be no military history necessarily on this exam. There's not going to be a history of weapons. But when you got close enough, right? Because these particular weapons, you could usually load and fire if you were fast, like 3 rounds a minute, which compared to modern firearms is very slow. But at some point, your enemy is going to be right up on you. They're going to be like, if it takes you approximately 20 to 30 seconds to reload, by that time, your enemy could have gotten right up on you. So at some point, you're going to be like in close combat. And so that's when you use that bayonet for stabbing. So that's if you're wondering, what are those things? Those are bayonet points that you fix to the end of your musket. Okay. Camila is talking about branches. Camila, I'm going to get to you on branches. And okay, I think I'm caught up with the chat. Vanilla, I see you in via email. And so thank you. I'm giving you a shout out as well. One more question before I get back to my presentation. Are there going to be any questions on the exams about how one branch checks the other? There will be, but as I'm going to show you in my presentation, the graphic, the checks and balances graphic that was in the practice exam, and I'm going to show you in this slideshow, it's the exact same graphic. So really all the information you're going to need about checks and balances is going to be on the exam. I'm going to put that picture right on the exam. By the way, the dog you're hearing barking in the background, that's my dog, Bella. Bella is barking probably because she's hungry, but she's going to get her dinner. She got a late lunch, so she's going to get her dinner after the YouTube live. Um, yes, so let's go ahead and keep going. So Shays Rebellion, to kind of jump back into the presentation here. Shays Rebellion basically demonstrates to the leaders, the colonial leaders of that era, people like Alexander Hamilton and James Madison and George Washington, it proves to them this is not sustainable. The system that we have right now, the Articles of Confederation, ultimately it is going to crumble. Our nation is going to crumble if we don't do something about it. So they decided to gather in May of 1787 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they originally gathered to fix the Articles of Confederation. That meeting, that gathering is eventually going to become the Constitutional Convention. And so if my dog continues to bark, I might just run over and feed her really quickly and then come right back to you. So we'll see. This is the gathering. These are the guys who gathered in Philadelphia, right? People like I mentioned, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, Roger Sherman, all of the guys that you did your Funko Pop Constitutional Convention figures on. These are the guys who gathered in Independence Hall in Philadelphia to figure out what are we going to do. Originally, the goal was to just fix the articles, just make a few tweaks and amendments. But what we know about the Articles of Confederation is it took 13 out of the 13 states in order to amend the articles. And how many amendments had they had up to that point? Zero. Zero amendments ever successfully created for the Articles of Confederation. It was just too difficult. So finally, in secret, and remember, it was important to have that secrecy because they didn't want people to know, like, hey, we're actually going beyond our original charge. We're actually going beyond what we told people we were originally going to do. Instead of just fixing the articles, we got to keep this a secret because we're writing an entirely new document. So they meet in secret in Philadelphia in the summer of 1787. John Jay was there as well to answer your question, Alex. And so they finally decide we need a brand new document. And we need to make some changes we need to make some improvements over the Articles of Confederation. So what's one of those things that they include? Well, first thing we are going to have built into our system is federalism or the federal system. This is going to be part of the groundwork is going to be laid in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which we're going to talk about later. Part of this groundwork is going to be laid, the rest of it is going to be the 10th Amendment to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which we're actually learning about right now, learning about the Bill of Rights. But this is one of the things that I would like for you to know is the way that we divide powers between the United States government, those are the national powers, the state powers, and then the ones in the middle here, those are the shared powers. In total, Brendan, I think there were 57 people at the Constitutional Convention, I think, and not all of them ended up signing because there were some there. They were anti-federalists, people like George Mason. They decided they were not going to sign the Constitution. They did not believe in it. They thought that maybe it went too far. When we get to the exam, I know I'm kind of telling the story, but also I want to help you with the exam as well. When we get to the exam, this Venn diagram is not going to be on your exam. And so I want to be clear, this Venn diagram won't be on there. And so what I want you to know about the federal system is that in general, the national powers, those are the big things. Things like coining money, things like a postal system, things like regulating foreign and interstate commerce, right? Maintaining an armed forces, declaring war. These big things, big national issues, those are the national powers. State powers would be local things like education, schooling, licenses and permits. My marriage license, the kind that my wife and I got, that's a local thing, right? A license to be a barber or a cosmetologist or a massage therapist. Those are all local things that states can deal with. And then the things that are shared are things like they both national and state, they need the power to tax, the power to borrow money, the power to make and enforce laws. Those are some shared powers. So again, this graphic organizer will not be on the exam. So a good thing to do to study for federalism is look at your notes on federalism or the federal system, or you can pull up really any one of these, including this one. This is a good one, these Venn diagrams. If you just do a Google image search for federal system Venn diagram or federalism Venn diagram, it lays it all out for you. So that's one of the things that you will see on the exam is going to be a section. I want to say that's 3 or 4 questions. I think it was, or maybe 5 questions, somewhere around 4 or 5. There are a good number of questions on federalism or the federal system. I think the same number that were on the practice exam are going to be on this exam. Checks and balances. This diagram will be on the exam, so you don't need to memorize all the different checks and balances. Really, those questions are going to be about, do you understand why we have checks and balances, right? Do you understand why we have separation of powers? Do you understand the theory? Why did we do this? And why did we do this? Was I really smart? And did I put the James Madison quote right here? Nope. But I did put, I'm going to go ahead a little bit. There we go. This is why in the Constitution, I know I'm jumping ahead in my slideshow. This is why we have separation of powers and checks and balances. This quote, or a portion of this quote, is going to be on your exam. Listen to this. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. In other words, if everybody just did what they were supposed to do, if we were all angels and all were rule followers and treated everybody fairly all the time, we wouldn't need a government. But the reality is that people are ambitious. People tend to want power. And so because people are ambitious, because they want power, because they want wealth, because people can sometimes be greedy, that is why we built these systems in place, checks and balances, separation of powers. While you think on that, give me a moment because my dog Bella here is not going to let me, continue peacefully until, hi. Okay. Well, since I've been talking about you, come here. Now, I've been telling you that Bella has, I've told some classes that Bella's had a little bit of an issue with her skin. And I just took her to the vet yesterday. So real quick, we're gonna have a Bella break. Come here. So here's Bella, and there she is. And the reason why there she is. Oh, wait, she's a little blurry. There we go. The reason why she has the cone on is because she's been chewing on her tail a little bit. So say hi, Bella. All right. I'm gonna feed Bella dinner really quickly, and then I'm gonna be right back. You're gonna be thinking about Federalist 51, separation of powers, checks and balances, and then Libby, when I come back, I'm gonna check the chat. All right. Thanks for your patience. Hi, and I'm back. Normally this wouldn't be an issue, but my my wife is out of town. She's doing her PTA thing, and of course my daughter is in Oregon going to college. So right now it's just me and Bella all by ourselves. So there was nobody else to feed her but me. Okay, I'm gonna pause really quickly because I told you I would check the chat. And all right, let's see here. What do we got going on? Are there going to be any questions on the exam about how one branch checks another? Yes, but it's really going to be more of the theory behind it because this diagram is going to be on the exam. So you don't need to memorize all of this. You just need to understand the why. Why was it so difficult? Was it the overwhelming amount of people that needed to agree? Kitty kid, I'm not sure. You might need to explain that again in the chat. The states had most of the power and the articles had it that way. Oh, I think we're going back to the Articles of Confederation now. And so, Steve, the states had most of the power in the Articles. Going back, sorry, to the Articles of Confederation, that was intentional, right? The articles were intentionally created a weak national government. That was on purpose because they didn't want monarchy all over again. They had just declared independence from monarchy. They did not want to have a King George III situation all over again. They did not want to have a tyranny, a despotism all over again. So they intentionally created a weak government, a weak United States government, a weak national government, so they wouldn't have a strong central government telling them what to do. They had had so much order, so much structure, so many rules for so long that they decided, you know what? Maybe we have a little more chaos. Let's loosen it up a little bit so that we can do our own thing, so that the people in the states had more freedom. Hopefully that answers your question. Oh, that doesn't explain why amending laws was so hard. Under the Articles of Confederation, you needed 9 of the 13 states to vote to approve a law. That's difficult enough as it is. 9 out of 13, that's a two-thirds vote. You can barely get Congress, as you can see, because we're just emerging from the government shutdown right now. You can barely get Congress to agree on anything. Congress is so divided right now that you can barely get a 60 vote in the Senate, 60 out of 100 vote in the Senate. You can barely get a simple majority in the House of Representatives today. Imagine having to get a two-thirds vote, 67% vote. That is nearly impossible. So laws were hard enough to pass under the Articles of Confederation, nearly impossible. Well, I mean, it was impossible to get an amendment because an amendment required a vote of all 13 out of the 13 states. There's no way you can get a unanimous. There's no way. We rarely get a unanimous vote in Congress today. It barely happens, and it's usually like, do we want to vote to honor this veteran who is the most amazing American ever in the history of America, right? When that happens, when Congress is voting on a resolution to honor someone who served their country, the Senate, it's 100-0, or the House of Representatives is 435-0. That they can agree upon. Most everything else they can't. So that's why amendments under the Articles of Confederation were virtually impossible. And you got to understand this. Our country grows and changes over time. There are some things that we're naturally going to leave out of the original document. That's why the creators of the Constitution created an amendment system, because they knew that the Constitution would not be complete. They knew that it was not going to be perfect. They knew that it was going to be good enough for us to at least get started, and then we'll start building in those amendments. Okay. Is there going to be a question on the angel quote? Yes, Jackson Wirtz. There will very likely be a question on the angel quote. Yes. So if we're going to, now that we're back in this now, yes. So, and I think I included this in the practice exam, and I'm very likely going to be including this in your real exam as well. So I want you to understand the reason why James Madison said this is because he knows that humans are fallible. Humans make mistakes. Humans get ambitious. Humans get greedy. And so because humans get greedy, because men are not angels, that's why we create a government where nobody, hopefully, can gain too much power, and where each of the branches has the power to kind of put the other branches in check. That's why we have checks and balances. That's why we have separation of powers, to divide up the power so nobody hopefully gets too powerful. Okay. Cone of shame. I know, poor Bella. Okay. Hi, Carter. How many questions are there going to be about national, state, and shared powers, or is there going to be some sort of matching question? So I think that multiple choice section has some of the most questions, and that's like 4 or 5 maximum. There's no more than 5 questions in a section. I think that one has the most. It's really just to kind of get an idea of, do you understand the difference between federal, national powers, state powers, and shared powers? Are you going to write down any of the text on the images in the exam? Ender 424, I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you could explain your question, I would appreciate that. Yeah, are you going to write down any of the text on the images? I'm not sure I understand. Ender, this checks and balances image will be on the exam. Yes, that's true. And what we know so far, and that the national and state powers diagram won't be. Yes. What do you mean by the theory of branches checking each other? Great question, Cassandra. Basically, I want you to understand, and hopefully I've explained this by now, the reason that James Madison, who was the main author of the text of the Constitution, right? The reason why James Madison put this language, created this system, is so that no one branch could become too powerful. That's why. Okay, I'm going to move on from that. Thank you, best history teacher. I appreciate that. Thank you. The pillar thing. Yes, we're going to talk about the pillar thing in just a moment. I think we're ready to move forward now, because we are going to get to the pillar thing. I do want to talk about the Great Compromise. There was a student who asked, what's the difference between the Great Compromise and the Three-Fifths Compromise? The Great Compromise, this was also part of the Constitutional Convention. Remember, under the Articles of Confederation, there was a unicameral legislature, meaning there was one House of Congress, and each state had an equal vote in the Congress under the Articles of Confederation. That was great for little states like New Jersey. They liked they liked the system that they had under the Articles of Confederation. One House of Congress, each state has equal representation. New Jersey was like, you know what? Let's stick with that under the Constitution. That works great. But you had larger states, in other words, states that had a greater population, states like Virginia, states like Massachusetts, who are like, wait a minute, how is that fair to us? We have way more Americans in our states, so shouldn't we have more representation in the American Congress? And so there was this argument back and forth between the big states and the small states. Should we have representation in Congress based on population, like Virginia wants? Should we have representation in New Jersey? Excuse me, in representation, equal representation by state, like New Jersey wants? Which plan should we go with? And the plan that we went on was, let's have the best of both. That's the great compromise. And I'm switching to this slide because this is a bicameral legislature. That's what we have today in Washington, D.C. We have two houses of Congress. The House of Representatives is based on population, and the Senate has equal votes for every state. So we have, just like in the Hannah Montana theme song, we have the best of both worlds, right? You get the best of the Virginia plan, the best of the New Jersey plan combined into one Congress. It's a bicameral, meaning two-chamber Congress with the House and the Senate. I'm going to pause really quickly before I move on to check the chat. Is the test going to be on Class Companion? The answer is yes, because I like Class Companion and because I have written short answer questions. You can get at least a tentative score, right? Like ultimately, I am the final grader. I am the final decider of your grade. But I love how Class Companion gives you such immediate feedback. So right away, Class Companion is going to give you an immediate tentative score. And then I will review the feedback from Class Companion. And then I will decide, I'll be the ultimate decider of what your final score is going to be. But if Class Companion gives you a 9 or 10 on your written response, chances are I'm going to give you probably a 9 or 10. I have trained Class Companion really well, hopefully, because I put my rubric in. I've told Class Companion this is exactly how I want these to be graded. This is exactly what we've learned in our class. I've put all of our material. I have put the transcripts of every YouTube video that I have made for this class, all of the vocab. This is hilarious. Bella is now dragging toys through the house or something through the house. If you're wondering what is that noise in the background. And so Class Companion is very well trained because I have trained it well. So I'm hoping that that Class Companion will give you a score that is reflective of the score that I would give you. But Class Companion, by the time we close the class, in other words, everyone's done with the test, then it is my intention to then release the score so that you can at least see a tentative score so you know as quickly as possible, because kids stress out about their test grades, right? You care about your grades and you want to know how well you did. And once everyone in the class is done, then I will close it, and so that you should be able to see the scores. Okay. Going back to the chat, and then I have some questions. Actually, before I go to the chat, I'm going to just address the questions that have popped up in email because I know you've been patient. Paige Burns asks, do we have to discuss the Funko Pop character we were assigned for the project? I thought about having that as a short answer question. I have decided no. No. So Paige, no. Brendan says, thank you. You're welcome. Alex asks, was John Jay at the Constitutional Convention? Yes. Alex says, so cute. Yes, Bella is very cute. How many total questions will be on the exam? And how many points will the exam be worth? 24. I mentioned this at the beginning, but if you were jumping in a little late, 24 multiple choice questions, each worth 1 point. 3 short answer questions. Each short answer question is worth 10 points. Now you may be thinking, oh my goodness, 10 points, Mr. Ippolito. That's crazy. 10 points per question. And the answer is yes. The reason why I'm choosing 10 points per question is because that gives you a wide range, right? That gives you a really broad range to answer based on what you know. So if you can give me a 70% answer on a written, well, then I want to give you 7 out of 10 points. I want to give you a good amount of points. Um, if you can give me a better answer than that, then that's great. If you're really struggling, then but if you can at least give me the basics, then that's at least going to earn you like a 5 or 6. It's at least going to earn you half credit. Whereas if I only do 3 or 4 or 5 points per question, then if you don't quite get it, then that's a 3 out of 5. That's like a 60%. I want to be able to have more scores to give you, if that makes sense. And I'm hoping it does. Again, as teachers, we're just trying to do the best we can and try to make grading as fair and equitable as possible. That's what I'm trying to do at least. So I'm hoping that by having the multiple choice worth 1 point each, 24 of those approximately, and then the 3 written questions worth 10 points each, that gives you a lot of wiggle room there. Um, and then so total, if we're adding that up, if we take the exam as it stands right now, as I've written it, as of probably 30 minutes before we started this live, 24 plus 30, right? 3 times 10, that's going to be 54 points total. I could change it, go up or down, but I think that's where we're standing right now. Okay. Going through, is this slideshow going to be in Google Classroom if we don't get all the way through it? My intention is to get all the way through it, but Libby, you're going to remind me. Hi, Libby. Libby's in the library right now at Willamette University. So once again, a shout out, go Bearcats, Willamette University. Libby is going to remind me to drop this slideshow. There's no reason why I can't drop it into Google Classroom, and it makes a lot of sense. So yes, this slideshow, by the way, if you checked out either of my vocab videos, you're going to recognize these images. So yes, I'll just drop the whole thing in because why not? It's a Canva slideshow. I'm happy to share it. Libby, you're going to remind me of that. Thank you, Paige, for asking that. Okay, next question in email. Ian says, "Hello. What do students struggle with most?" Oh gosh, that's a very big question, Ian. Hopefully you're gonna let me know. Everybody who's on the chat or messaging me via email, you're gonna let me know what you struggle with most because I want to help you. That's the whole reason why I'm spending an hour on a Wednesday evening is to help you so that you will not struggle on the test. So I hope that helps answer your question, Ian. Okay, no more questions in the email. Let's just go to the chat really quickly. Like the pillar. Yes, pillar, we're gonna get to. We haven't looked at the pillar yet, but we're gonna get to that. Is the test gonna be in class companion? Yes. What does the study guide mean by 3 powers Congress had? Uh, of course there were more, but it feels kind of hard to pinpoint the most important ones. Also, can the one Okay, so now I'm going to the study guide right now. Kitty Kid, it's been a while since I have looked. Uh, the 3. I'm looking for the number 3. And I'm not fine. Let me see. 3. Okay, I'm doing a search for the word 3, THREE, and I'm looking for the number, and I'm still, Kitty Kid, I'm not quite sure if I understand what you mean by the 3 powers. So if you could explain that, or if somebody else knows, if we're talking about 3 branches, maybe you're talking about 3 branches. Uh, so the 3 branches of government, legislative, executive, and judicial, and the main role and powers of each, as well as how they check and balance one another. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't write more exam. And so that part right there that says the 3 branches of government, that's really just, let me go back here. It's this. That's really all. Like we didn't really get to Congress. Congress creates the laws, and the executive branch enforces the laws, and the judicial branch interprets the laws, because we're going to see that in action throughout the school year. So I didn't get into that a ton. So that's why, if you're asking, and maybe that's what you're asking about, the 3 branches of government, know all the main role and powers. This is all I need for you to know on the 3 branches is checks and balances and the separation of powers. How that this is all you need to know. And more importantly, why we did this. Federalist 51, men are not angels. That's what you need to know about the 3 branches of government. That's it. Okay. Hopefully that helps. Uh can we agree this guy should become a streamer? I am a streamer. Look, I'm on YouTube right now. Let's remember to keep the chat history related, please. Libby, thank you. We're going to have a retake. Yes, this is not Steve. You ask a great question. And just to kind of relieve the pressure on folks, yes, this is not the end of the quarter. So yes, there will be a retake opportunity. I'll give you more information on the retake next week. Is the test going to be the whole class time? Whenever I give a unit exam, you can expect, I didn't really talk about this in class, but I'm going to put the chairs in straight rows. The desks will be in straight rows as they were for, I think the last time we did that was for the civics exam. And then, yes, my intention is to give you the entire class period if you need it. There will be an activity for you to complete if you finish before everybody else does. And the checking thing will be shown on the test so we don't. Oh, yeah, the checks and balances. This right here will be on the exam. You do not need to memorize this. The study guide asks for us to know one check for each branch. This, no one check for each branch. This is right on the, like I'm giving you the answer, so I'm not going to ask you because I'm giving you the answer right here. So everything you need to, you don't need to memorize anything for checks and balances. Just got a question in email. Will we be able to use our notes or anything from this unit? I assume not. You assume correctly. There will be, this is not an open note exam. Nope, not that kind of exam. Okay, moving forward, you're asking a lot of really good questions. I think I'm ready to move forward. Three-fifths compromise. So, three-fifths compromise. This is part of the way that the Constitution addressed slavery. Are you ready for? I'm about to give you one of your three questions. One of your three short answer questions. Are you listening? Are you writing this down? One of the three short answer questions will be on how did the Constitution deal with slavery or fail to deal with slavery, right? So if you go back, and this really all goes back to it was really just one assignment, and that one assignment was called I think it was called the U.S. Constitution and Slavery. I think was there were some questions. I'm pulling this up right now. Slavery in the U.S. Constitution. If I bring this over, let's see. Can you see this reading? I'm hoping you can because I just dragged it in here. It's this reading right here. And so we're going to find out really soon if, can you see this? Oh, yeah, there it is. I can see it. This is the reading, and then we answered some questions. If you go over this reading right here, I think this is going to be a huge help to you right here. Because the question asks, the short answer question is basically going to ask, what did the folks at the Constitutional Convention, how did the Constitution handle slavery, and how did it fail to handle slavery? So you should know, and we talked about this a ton in class. We talked about this right around the same time that we did the Charlie Brown Constitutional Convention thing. Should enslaved people be counted as part of the population? The answer was kind of. This was the three-fifths compromise. If you remember, the Southern states wanted each enslaved person to count as an entire person for the purposes of population so they could have more power in the House of Representatives and more power in the Electoral College. The folks of the North, the delegates of the North were like, hey, wait a minute. You don't even treat these people like human beings. Why are you demanding that they be counted as complete people? And so the South was like, count them as, how about 75% of a person? And then the North is like 25%. And then they go back and forth and they finally compromise, which is a horrible thing, right? To treat someone as a fraction. They finally compromise and decide that it's going to be three-fifths of a person. In other words, every enslaved person in the United States is going to count, three people counted towards the state population for every five enslaved people. Whereas for free white people, it's five people counting towards the state population, five out of every five. So this was one of those compromises, those slavery-related compromises. The next compromise, what should be done about the slave trade? If you remember that in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, there were people in the North who were like, slavery is an abomination, slavery is awful. Why are we continuing this? Because the slave trade, the international slave trade, where humans, this is basically human trafficking, where humans are being taken away from Africa, from the Caribbean, and taken away from everything that they've known and taken across the Atlantic Ocean or across the Caribbean to the United States. And there were enough people who said this needs to end. And so the South was like, whoa, 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 not quite yet. And so the compromise was, okay, we're not going to end the international slave trade right away. But Article 1, Section 9 says 20 years after the Constitution is ratified, that's when it will end. The Constitution is ratified in 1788. And so the international slave trade officially ends in 1808. And finally, do states have a responsibility to return escaped slaves? This was the Fugitive Slave Clause, Article 4, Section 2, which basically says that, yes, states need to cooperate and need to allow slave catchers. Again, it's all a system of human trafficking, and this was just legal and this was allowed during this time. And so they allowed slave catchers to come into northern states to catch people who were basically, what is their crime? What crime have they committed? The crime that they've committed is they stole themselves. They stole their bodies. They stole their freedom. They want the same freedom that all Americans want. But unfortunately, during this time, they're not treated as humans. They're treated as property. And so then the final thing, I'll close this off here. The final thing that I would ask you to consider is the fact that what did the Constitution not address? What did the Constitution fail to discuss or fail to address, right? And so what was their failing? One thing that you could mention is the fact that they could have ended slavery. They could have ended it once and for all. If we're creating a free country, they could have created freedom for everyone. We know that that would have been a non-starter with the southern states. But there perhaps could have been a negotiation. Perhaps there could have been more an attempt. Perhaps if we had the 20-year time limit on the international slave trade, maybe they could have made a 30-year limit or a 40-year limit. And after that time, slavery is going to eventually end. I don't know. I wasn't there. And so it's very easy for us in the modern day in 2025 to say, oh, you could have handled this so easily. The reality is probably that the southern states would very likely have pulled out of the Constitutional Convention and it would have collapsed, right? They would have said that that was a non-starter. They were not willing to negotiate on ending slavery by any means. So ultimately, how is the issue of slavery in the United States going to be resolved? It's going to be resolved with bloodshed. It's going to be resolved in the Civil War, ultimately. Okay, that's a lot more on the Three-Fifths Compromise. Ratification, this cartoon, just like it was in the practice exam, is going to be on the actual exam as well. I'm going to pause really quickly because there are some other questions coming in to the chat. Yes, every enslaved person, that's correct, Alex. Every enslaved person was counted as 60%, not 100% like free people. Absolutely right. And then in the YouTube chat here, you should memorize the answers. I'm not sure what that means. If you memorize the answers, you will understand the questions. Well, hopefully it's more than just memorization. Again, I'm providing you, this exam is what's called a stimulus-based exam. In other words, for almost every question in the multiple choice, I give you a stimulus. I give you a picture like this one right here of the pillars, or I give you a quote from Federalist 51 or Federalist 70. And then, or I give you just some information on the Constitutional Convention or information on the Federalists or the Anti-Federalists. And so I'm giving you a little bit of information, and then you use that information along with what you've learned in class to answer the questions. So hopefully it's not all about memorization. To understand the question, you shouldn't need to have the answer, should you? Cassandra, you say you're confused. I want to clear up that confusion. And Steve says, yeah, but just in case, know what answers you have. It could help a lot. Okay, maybe you can clear that up because I'm not sure I understand your question in the chat, but I can because I have Spondita and Paige both asking, could you please explain the ratification cartoon? I sure can. This is right in front of us. When this cartoon was published, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 states. 11 states had already ratified. You know from our discussion in class that how many states needed to ratify in order for the Constitution to become the supreme law of the land? It was 9. 9 out of the 13 states. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. New Hampshire was the 9th state to ratify. So when New Hampshire ratified in May of 1788, the Constitution became the law of the land. Congratulations. But ideally, they wanted all 13. So Virginia came in shortly thereafter, followed by New York. Alexander Hamilton is from New York. He faced a very fierce battle. Alexander Hamilton was very much a very strong and vocal Federalist, but it took him a while. Notice that New York is the 11th state to ratify. And so it did take him a while to convince his fellow New Yorkers in the New York legislature to vote in favor of ratification. Maybe some of them were voting against it just because they were voting against him. He was kind of obnoxious. Anyway, um, this cartoons like this were published. There were cartoons published with 5 pillars and 7 pillars and 8 pillars and then 9 pillars. This cartoon was reprinted and in different forms over and over again during that time period of ratification. Really, what this means, though, is we already have a country and we already have an active constitution. We already have 11 out of the 13 states. So, really, North Carolina and Rhode Island, what's your deal? Why are you holding out? Because what will happen is if you don't ratify, we're still going to have a country. You're just going to be left out in the cold. You're just going to be your own thing. I want you to notice you don't need to worry about the poem, although the poem is very flowery. It says here, the foundation good, it may yet be saved. In other words, like there's still a chance for us to be a full 13 out of 13. Rise it will. There's so much optimism in this political cartoon. I even just noticed for the very first time this hand emerging from the clouds, almost like it was the hand of God. Maybe the hand of God guiding North Carolina into place. So maybe there's some sort of like divine intervention that's like, hey, states, you're gonna find your way. You're gonna become one unified country, all 13 out of 13 eventually joining to become one truly United States of America. That's what they were looking for ratification. But it was a battle, right? It was a fight. It was a fight between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Now, you will, before I get to that, and before I get to these really, these are clearly AI generated, but I generated them for a purpose. Let me go back here really quickly. Um, Spondita asks the question, what does the text on the graphic mean? This, if you're talking about this text, this is a poem. This is a poem that is explaining the virtues of the federal edifice. Edifice in Spanish, the word edificio means building or structure. So it comes from the Latin edifice, I believe, which means building. The United States is a structure. It is a building, and ideally, we would like to have it on all 13 pillars in order to make it the strongest, right? So it's talking about the Saturnian age, like this is filled with like Roman symbolism, and this is our dear country, and how lovely and wonderful. On the erection of the 11th pillar of the great national dome, we beg leave most sincerely to facilitate our dear country. Like it's basically almost like a love letter to the United States. Like, I know that you're all gonna come together, guys. I love, we love you all, and we think you're all gonna, if we could just have all 13 states, it would be lovely. So that's really all you need to know about this. Ratification, for those people on this side, the Federalist side, part of their motivation and part of their argument was, let's just all get together. Let's all come together. We were able to come together to fight Great Britain in the American Revolution. Let's all come together to form this wonderful, amazing nation and all support the Constitution. This, of course, these are AI generated figures, and you can see like they look very similar. They all kind of look a little bit like Alexander Hamilton. But the idea here is that the Federalists dreamed of a strong national government, a strong central government. They dreamed of stability. That's what they wanted. That's why they wanted the Constitution to be ratified. The Anti-Federalists had an opposite dream. They were worried that they feared a strong national government. They worried that it would give rise to a king, that it would give rise to a tyrant, to a despot, because the national government was being created as too powerful. But again, the compromise, and I know that there are some misspelled weird words here, but they did believe in states' rights, and they believed that the Constitution could threaten not only states' rights, but the rights of individuals. And so the Anti-Federalists said, if we're going to support this, Federalists, if we're as Anti-Federalists, if we're going to support this, you absolutely need to make a promise to include. Oh, I thought Bill of Rights was going to, they wanted a Bill of Rights. uh, They wanted the promise of a Bill of Rights. And so the Federalists promised, we promise, once the Constitution is ratified, we promise we're going to get right to work on a Bill of Rights and then we'll pass it. And sure enough, you know what? This was an age where American politicians actually kept their promises. Amazing, right? The Constitution was ratified in 1788. By 1791, they had the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. So, yay, American politicians can actually keep their promises. And that promise was fulfilled, and the Bill of Rights was signed, was ratified only 3 years later, which, for Congress is pretty fast. Okay. All right, talked about Federalist 51. Since we're on the topic of Federalists, let's talk about Federalist 70. This was not in the practice exam. I want you to listen carefully. Our time's running short, but I want to get to Federalist 70 here. This is a quote from Alexander Hamilton. This was one of the essays that he wrote, one of the many essays that he wrote to support the ratification of the Constitution. Energy in the executive is a leading character in the definition of good government. It is essential to the protection of the community against foreign attacks. It is not less essential to the steady administration of the laws, to the protection of property, yada, 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 yada. Bill of Rights was ratified, 100% ratified in 1791, Alex. Alexander Hamilton, when he's writing this essay, one of many in support of the Constitution, says we need energy in the executive, which means we need a strong president. Now, Alexander Hamilton, during the Constitutional Convention, he even proposed the idea of a president for life. I think people on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, I think most can agree that a president for life is not a good idea. We would not want a president for life today. But I think Alexander Hamilton was thinking, I think he had one man in mind when he was thinking of the possibility of a president for life. And that one man that I think he had in mind was this guy right here, George Washington. Alexander Hamilton served under him as his aide de camp, his secretary, personal secretary during the Revolutionary War. I think Alexander Hamilton saw George Washington as a father figure. Alexander Hamilton was abandoned by his father when he was a kid. And so I think that when he was talking about energy in the executive and he's saying, you know what, we need a strong president. That's one of the things we can get if we have a constitution. We can have a strong executive branch that can be decisive, that can keep our country safe, that can protect our country. I think he had George Washington in mind. So if you see a question about Federalist 70 energy in the executive, that's what he's talking about. A strong president can equal a strong country. Okay. I'm going to pause really quickly and kind of go back into the chat here. What do you recommend studying? Oh my goodness, all the stuff we just talked about the last 57 minutes and the study guide. What platform will the exam be on? Class Companion. Weird question. Because we're being tested on the Constitution, will the Bill of Rights be on the test? Steve, that's a great question. The answer is no. And the reason why is because we're just learning. The Bill of Rights is the next thing, right? Period 2, we didn't start the Bill of Rights yet. Periods 4, 5, and 6, we just started it today. But the Bill of Rights is going to be it's going to be a quiz, and it's going to be separate right before Thanksgiving. So please do not worry about Bill of Rights at all on this exam. What topics will be on the short answer? I'm getting to them, Cassandra. I appreciate your patience. All right. Supremacy clause, that's going to be on the exam. Just know that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. That means that nothing is above the Constitution. The Constitution and federal laws are supreme. So if there is a state law that conflicts with a federal law, or if there's a state law that conflicts with the Constitution, the state law loses, the federal law wins. The state law loses, the Constitution wins. The Constitution and federal government is the supreme law of the land. I don't know why I have them again. Bill of Rights. Oh, there we are. The Bill of Rights. The promise was promise was made and promise was kept. 10 amendments ratified by 1791. Okay. Cassandra, here is the moment you've been waiting for, and we're almost to the end of our time here. So, hey, Libby, are you jumping in? We got like 2 minutes, probably a few more minutes. But Libby, if you want to jump in to the Zoom, you can, if you're able to. 3 short answer questions. The first question: chaos to order. This has been the theme of our entire unit. How did our country go? And you're going to need to provide examples from the chaos of the Articles of Confederation to the order and structure of the Constitution. So I want your thoughts on that. A lot of different ways you can answer that. But that's question number 1. Question number 2, John Green and Crash Course. I included this, and so I'm going to bring this back here. Oh, Libby, I'm so sorry. You can't join because you don't have a Heart District account. Okay. Well, Libby, sorry, Libby. You're just gonna have to you're gonna have to be with us in spirit, because I don't know if I can fix it. Um, and I want to make sure because we're coming up on 7:59. So let me slide this over here real quick. The second question, crash course. I told you in advance this is going to be on there. Crash course, big ideas. So it's going to be a question very similar to this. In this episode, John Green explains how the Constitution was meant to balance liberty and order, but still left many questions unresolved. Be prepared to discuss one line from the video. And I'm going to go ahead and give you in the study guide, I give you 5 lines. I'm probably going to get rid of the beer line in the test because I feel like I don't want any parents to say, "Mr. Polito, are you promoting underage drinking?" No, I'm not. But just so we're clear, I think I'm probably going to get rid of this. So chances are you're going to have to take one of these 4 lines and just explain what it reveals about the story of the United States going from chaos under the Articles to order under the Constitution. Again, the theme is order to chaos. Okay. And then let me move this back over here. The last question, slavery in the Constitution, talked about that. Three-fifths compromise, international slave trade, the fugitive slave clause, and then finally, what was left unresolved. Um, Last thing I want to mention is this, because you've been awesome. We have 192 views total on this stream. This is really good. I'm impressed. Okay, I'm going to try to do this without messing with my stream. Let's see if I can. Is that the last slide? I think this is the last slide. This was, yeah, I've narrowed it down. There were 7 questions that I put. This was in the thing when I did a Cami answering the questions from the crash course. I've narrowed it down in your study guide. Okay, let me hit escape here because I want to go here and hopefully not mess. This is going to be like, yeah, this is going to be like some Inception here. It's me with me. Can I show you this right here? In here, I dropped, because the last question you're probably going to ask me is, what should I study? Well, vocab part 1, I think that's good. That's going to be a repeat of some of the things you heard tonight. Vocab part 2, also good. The study guide, you already have that. And then the crash course. You know what? If you got another, what is that crash course? 12, 13 minutes? It's worth, since the crash course is going to be one of your 10-point questions, it might be worth watching that crash course all over again. John Green does a great job. I love watching John Green videos. I think he's really helpful. Okay. Libby, we're almost done. Let's see. Can I uh what is still left? Let me go ahead and just stop the screen share. Stop the screen share. Hello. Hey, it's me in full screen. Okay. So Cassandra, I answered your question on what topics on the short answer. Um, and then okay. Libby, I don't okay, I think I've answered all the questions in the email. I think I've answered all the questions in the chat. Is there anything else? Who is Hamilton? Is he the guy from the musical? Hamilton, the character Hamilton was in the musical. The character Hamilton in what you might see on Disney Plus was played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's been played by a number of other actors on stage. He was the original actor in the original Broadway stage production, and he's the one who's on Disney Plus. But Alexander Hamilton, is one of what we consider to be the founding fathers, right? He was one of the men who was in the Constitutional Convention. He is going to be, we haven't learned this yet, but he is going to be one of the founders of the first 2 political parties of the United States, the Federalist Party. That makes sense. He's also going to be the first Secretary of State of the United States, one of the authors of one of the primary author of the Federalist Papers. Thank you, Steve, for that. Yep. So he's more than just the guy from the musical, although we do plan to watch the musical in class, but it's not going to be before the test. Okay. I think we are almost done. I think our questions and it's really good timing. It's 8:04 right now, so I think we are at a good stopping point. Are there any final questions? I'm not seeing any. Libby, if you have texted me, Uh, oh, okay. And oh, so before we go, for those of you still hanging on, I was wondering how how can I share? So this is, let me share. I'll do a screen share here. If I can find my Zoom. There we go. Share. This right here, this is my daughter Libby. Hey, Libby. Uh, this is my daughter Libby, who is on the YouTube. She's on our YouTube live, but because of the Heart District security settings, I couldn't bring her onto the Zoom. So this is Libby waving hi to everybody from all the way from Salem, Oregon. She says, "This is my hello photo to the children." So Libby, thank you so much for that, and thank you for sharing. And I'm also going to give a shout out to my former eighth grade student Lucas, who is now living in New York City. I think you're still in New York City, Lucas. So, Lucas, thank you for joining us on the live stream as well. Lucas is no longer an eighth grader. Lucas is like an adult now, but he has jumped into the live stream. Lucas was my student at Rio Norte a long time ago. So, Lucas, I want to give you a shout out as well. Okay, I think that's it. I think the chat. Uh, One last question. How much time will we have on the test after we finish? Yes, Lucas is still in New York City. Uh, Usually, what I try to do, this question is for Alex, but I know Alex, other people ask this question as well. My plan is to give you the entire class period. And if you finish early before the end of the class period, you know that I'll have an activity for you to do to keep you busy so that you're continuing to learn history and moving forward. It'll be something related, of course, to the Bill of Rights. Okay. Well, it is now 8:06. I want to thank Libby. I want to thank everybody who was on the chat from the very beginning. I want to. All right, Lucas, hold on. I'm going to give one final shout out. This is former student Lucas Florzak, who is, gosh, he was back from my early days. I'll give him a quick shout out as well. There is Lucas. Hello, Lucas. Watching the YouTube live from all the way from New York City. You can tell Lucas is he's well out of junior high and high school. Lucas is an adult, but Lucas, I'm going to give you a shout out as well. Thank you so much. All right. Hey, if you have any final questions, you can come see me in my classroom. Otherwise, it is now 8:06 p.m. We've had a great YouTube live review session. Thanks to everybody for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in room B5 next time. All right, take care. Have a good evening. Thank you. And if you want to say goodbye to everybody in the chat, then we are waving goodbye. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening. I look forward to seeing you either tomorrow or Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.